Welcome, welcome. It is Monday, September the 8th. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandajis. This is Hurricane Hub Live. And tonight on HHL, folks, we've got nothing cooking in the Atlantic Basin. Very unusual, being just 2 days out from the climatological peak of the season coming our way on September the 10th. And now in the East Pac, yeah, it is still cranking out named storms, still popping with activity. And as we've seen before, and is typically the case, when the East Pac is active, the Atlantic is typically not. Not always the case, but a good chunk of the time, that's what we see play on out. All right, there's the peak of the season coming our way. We are right here, and typically all the conditions line up around this time of the year for a lot of activity in the Atlantic Basin. We're just not seeing anything out there right now. Let's once again consult climatology here and look at the average storm dates. So we had Fernand, that was our sixth named storm so far this year. That developed on August the 23rd. Now compare that to last year for the sixth named storm. We didn't get that until September the 9th. So it may seem like we're well behind, but you got to look at what we did last year. And last year ended up being a well above normal season. There's a lot of activity in the second half of the season. You look at the rest of September, we had September the 11th, the 7th named storm, 24th and 25th, two named storms, and the 27th with the 10th named storm. And on average, we typically see around now the 7th and 8th named storms coming our way. Nothing on the horizon in the next 7 days, so we won't hit those benchmarks. And by September the 16th, typically you see the 9th, and by the end of the month, the 22nd, you get the 10th named storm. Based on the last 30 hurricane seasons, is it guaranteed? Obviously not. Last year, we were all over the place on those dates. We were a little bit behind schedule on the 8th named storm. We see that didn't come until September the 24th, and even behind on all the other dates as well, but we did get there. Now, I've seen a lot of folks comparing other hurricane seasons here, and if we go through the first 2 weeks of September without any named storms, it'll be the first time since 1992. So let's revisit 1992. That was the year of Hurricane Andrew. That was the most notable storm, but the entire season there was only 7 named storms. 4 of those became hurricanes. Now, let's talk about Andrew again. Andrew, the A named storm, first named storm of the season, didn't happen until August. So they went through June, July, and a good chunk of August without any named storms. And then Andrew came around, slamming into the Miami area in southeast Florida. Aside from that, there were 3 other hurricanes, but none of those made landfall that year, and overall well below normal. Now, we've had 6 named storms already this season and 1 major hurricane. Thankfully, that stayed offshore. So we'll just see how things play on out. Not saying we're not going to see any named storms for the remainder of the season. Is that possible? Sure, but most likely not. We'll probably see a big uptick in activity as we get towards the second half of September. Right now in the basin, there's a lot of impulses of convection you see here, tropical waves really, that look to flare on up, but then you see them just peter on out. And that's essentially what Invest 91L did. Do you remember last week that had a 90% chance of becoming Gabrielle? And then it went poof, gone. What happened? A lot of dry air, a lot of sinking motion out in the atmosphere, and that it just couldn't overcome that. And we do still have a lot of Saharan dust and dry mid-levels of the atmosphere out there. It's not overly saturated with dust right now, but it's certainly out there, and it is obviously impacting any of these tropical waves. We've got 2 right here that you can see really giving in to that dry air and really falling apart. And for the short term, that looks to be the case. We don't expect anything to develop out in the basin for the next 7 days. Now, in the background, the oceans, not having been mixed up very much with not much in the way of named storms or really violent storms like Erin, that mixed up the ocean water significantly, left a sea surface scar here that's still evident, but it is filling back in, meaning the waters are building back some of that heat energy. And most of the rest of the basin is very, very warm. Let's take a look at that. Sea surface temperatures right now. Out in the main development region, we're seeing numbers in the readings of mid-80s. 80 degrees or warmer to really facilitate tropical development. We certainly have that. We really have that everywhere. Caribbean, same. As you get closer to the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Cuba, upper 80s, those sea surface temperatures. The Gulf just cooking. Upper 80s right now. Some spots probably near 90 degrees, especially closer to the coastlines there. So plenty of heat energy there. Southwest Atlantic, more of the same as well, despite this being the area that Erin moved over 2 weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks ago now. Still in the upper 80s, those sea surface temperatures. On average, the Gulf is running 1.7 degrees above normal for where it should be this time of the year. You look at the other basins that are capable of producing tropical activity, Caribbean over a degree, and the Atlantic Main Development Region, which is the birthplace of most of our long-track major hurricanes, is running roughly about a half a degree above normal for this time of the year. So there's a lot of available energy out there for a storm to take advantage of if and when it does develop. And it will develop. By the end of this season, we will have some more storms to be tracking out there. We're not throwing in the towel just yet. So we'll take the calm weather while we have it and enjoy that. Long-range outlook here. The Climate Prediction Center puts out these long-range outlooks. We'll get an update to this tomorrow. Every Tuesday they come out. But this is last week's outlook, and it was showing some sort of development possibility between the 10th and 16th. Way out in the main development region and over in the southwest Atlantic and Gulf. And then you jump ahead to the 17th to the 23rd, and that does highlight even more so the main development region with some moderate chances there, upwards of around 40% chance. Again, we get the update tomorrow. We'll see if that changes at all. The Atlantic, the next name up, is going to be Gabrielle. Of course, that was what we thought Invest 91L would be. But if we do get an Invest 92L, that could be a contender or a candidate for Gabrielle. Then Humberto, Melda, Jerry, and Karen. Now in the Eastern Pacific, we've got another tropical wave here that's now got a high chance. This could be Mario, next name on the list there. And we still have Kiko. Very impressive storm. It maintained major hurricane status for 90 hours. That is a very long period of time, especially for at this high latitude. This part of the Pacific Ocean is actually undergoing a marine heat wave, so very warm sea surface temperatures. And that's why we still have Kiko as a hurricane, 85-mile-per-hour Category 1. It is passing well north of the islands, which is good news. About a week ago, parts of the islands were in the cone of uncertainty, so thankfully it is passing by to the north, definitely bringing some nice surf to the islands there. Of course, a lot of folks enjoy that, and as it builds off to the west, northwest, it'll continue to weaken as it gradually encounters some cooler sea surface temperatures, and it moves away from the warmer waters that was fueling its intensity for the last week and a half, really. So up next, as I showed you, is Mario, the Narda, Octave, and Priscilla. Very, very active season out there in the Atlantic, in the Eastern Pacific. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 named storms already out in the basin there. We'll probably see a few more. So coming on up after a quick break, looking back at Hurricane Floyd. We're getting upon that anniversary of landfall. And later on is tropical trivia. We'll see you right after a quick break. Welcome back to Hurricane Hub Live. Hurricane Floyd in 1999 was a devastating storm that caused catastrophic flooding and significant damage across the eastern United States, particularly in North Carolina and right here in Virginia. So much so that our team here at 13 News Now did an hour-long special recapping the destruction. Let's take a look at part one of the 1999 special, Fury and Floods, with former anchor Barbara Sierra and former chief meteorologist Jeff Lawson.
Still a menace for many areas as it lingers off the coast.
The harsh reality of what the 120-mile-an-hour tornado spawned by Tropical Storm Dennis had done became all too apparent. A hurricane watch is issued for Hampton Roads.
And now it's time to batten down the hatches and get ready for a very powerful storm.
Floyd raises the roof.
It was so frightening. I was sitting there with water up to my head. I started praying to God.
Obviously, heavy rain, we don't need that. As wet as the ground is, that could cause some flooding problems.
Portsmouth, where flooding and power failures have shut down that city's water supply. 110,000 customers are affected.
Now to too much water in Franklin. Many neighborhoods are completely submerged in floodwaters.
I have talked to a lot of people here in Franklin, and they tell me that this is one of the most unbelievable and devastating scenes they have ever witnessed.
Tonight, a 13 News special, Floyd's Fury and Floods.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Barbara Sierra, and we're now walking on the semi-dry streets of Franklin, Virginia. And I'm with my colleague, 13 meteorologist Jeff Lawson.
I mean, Barbara, it's just hard to imagine that in many parts of downtown here, just a little over a week ago, only the roofs were visible of some of these places.
It was an unbelievable sight. All 182 businesses here were underwater, and many homes as well.
And I mean, it's still too early, obviously, to get the final toll from this system, but I mean, people around here are calling it the storm of the century, at least in terms of the flooding.
So for the next hour, for you folks at home, we're going to give you a video snapshot of sorts.
You'll be able to see how gentle streams turned into raging torrents, overflowing their banks and just spreading miles throughout the countryside.
We're going to begin with the flooding in Franklin.
Businesses in the district right now, they're all underwater.
Well, there's a stop sign, which is what this high, so it's probably 4 to 5 feet right in there.
You're on 4th Avenue at High Street, and what you're seeing down there is the water starts at Franklin Street and goes to Main Street, goes to Mechanic Street.
Ma'am, back to the sidewalk. We're going to be setting out booms, and we're going to be doing drum retrieval.
I can't even see my buildings down here. I don't know whether it's over top of them or not. I'm going to try to go get a look at them.
The bottom level of the church is completely flooded, completely to the ceiling. We have an atrium on the other side, which is lower than this side.
Yesterday, this time of day, I was standing underneath that Amico sign down there, and there was no water on the street. No water.
Our best estimate right now is the river is still rising approximately 5 to 7 inches per hour.
I don't know. There's a water line showing on the brick on the back of the church, maybe a couple foot or so up. Looks like a little darker line, or it could just be a brick line.
I think it's just a brick line. I think it's a brick line.
I was looking at some of the buildings over there, almost up to the second floor. Right here, this is in the dip. But that's the windows. See on that restaurant there? Right. That's one floor.
Who would have thought that downtown Franklin would ever have looked like this? It was just more water than anything could handle.
Every business in downtown Franklin is out of business and will be out of business for weeks.
Because we got sunken cars out there, we got a truck sunk with ladders on it, and that's sticking up out of the water. We got posts sticking up out of the water. I don't want a boat drain up.
Who's got flood insurance? Who, in 45 years, I haven't seen anything like this.
I stood over there on the other side of town and watched a maternity rescue from Isle of Wight County by boat, and the water was just on the street level. And 24 hours later, we have 8-foot flood in the city of Franklin.
Main Street, the last flood in 1940 was the level we go by, and Main Street was dry.
Those there are very large propane tanks. I cut the valves off earlier this morning.
This is City Hall. The first floor is totally underwater. The second floor is close. This court building is right above it, and no water there yet. The thing that hurts me the most is the fact that so many people's lives will be changed as a result of this, but we will rebuild. We'll come back, and we'll have a beautiful town again.
This small city of Franklin obviously suffered enormous destruction, but so did other parts of the area.
Hundreds of roads, including main streets like this one, and interstates were entirely washed over.
Cars were washed away, and homes and businesses throughout the region just flooded to destruction.
We know that we're up against a big situation. We're expecting a lot more rain, a lot more wind than we had with Bonnie, than we had with the nor'easters. We're asking that those who live in the lower-lying areas voluntarily evacuate those areas. It could be quite dangerous there.
When Dennis came through, we had 7 or 8 days of a lot of wind and a lot of heavy surf that builds up the groundwater, and therefore, as soon as we get rain, the rain's got no place to go.
We did not actually shut down the plant. Mother Nature did it for us. We had a storm surge that overtopped the retaining wall here at Lake Kilby and flooded our electrical room. We're going to have to wait for the storm surge runoff to come down so we can get the building pumped out. I've been here about 28 years and I've never seen anything like this. This is what I envisioned a 100-year storm looking like. We have never had an event that shut us down. This is it.
From its creation, Hurricane Floyd was, in a word, powerful.
We gave you a look at just some of the damage, but what exactly was it that hit us? My colleague, meteorologist Craig Moeller, explains.
The images are haunting. For over 9 days, Floyd teased, tormented, and eventually tortured people living in the Bahamas and the eastern United States. Now that the winds are calmer and the floodwaters are receding, we take a closer look at Floyd's impacts. Tuesday, September 7th, just before supper time, the National Hurricane Center classifies a swirl over the central Atlantic as a tropical depression with winds estimated at 30 miles per hour. Just 12 hours later, with winds up to 40 miles per hour, the new tropical storm is named Floyd. Friday morning, 2 days later, Floyd becomes a hurricane. After a weekend of strengthening, Floyd grew into one of the most powerful Atlantic hurricanes in recorded history. Tuesday the 14th, now a Category 4 hurricane, packing winds of 150 to 155 miles per hour, Floyd raked over the Bahamas. As the storm moved closer to the southeast U.S. coastline, Florida residents scrambled with their preparations. For the first time in the park's history, Disney World closed the gates to the Magic Kingdom, and 2 to 3 million people evacuated from coastal sections of Central and North Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. Floyd came close but took a more northerly track, setting his sights on the southern tip of North Carolina. He moved in early Thursday, September 16th.
There, the circulation moving over Cape Fear. That happened about 3 o'clock this morning with maximum winds at 110 miles per hour.
As the storm moved north-northeastward towards Hampton Roads, its exact position had greater importance to what different areas experienced.
As it moves off, I think we'll see the strongest winds down across North Carolina, and depending on how far to the west and to the north this track is, maybe just clipping the extreme southern part of the south side in Virginia as well.
The storm moved across the area much like Donna in 1960 and Charlie in 1986. The center of the storm passed from Elizabeth City through Currituck County and into the southern part of Virginia Beach, passing near Sandbridge. Officially, it was classified a Category 1 hurricane as it came through. Sustained hurricane-force winds were recorded at Duck Pier. Hurricane-force gusts were also found at the Chesapeake Light Station. The barometric pressure at Norfolk International fell to 28.85 inches of mercury, its fourth lowest level this century. Tidal flooding was a major problem for the Thursday afternoon high tide. At Sewell's Point, the water reached a level just 8 inches below the devastating flooding of the twin nor'easters in 1998. As the wind shifted to the west and northwest Thursday afternoon, Carolinians were hit with sound-side flooding. The strong west and northwest winds helped to drop the tidal levels of the Chesapeake Bay back to normal before the next high tide. River flooding was the greatest problem with Floyd. Early Thursday morning, following a night of heavy rains on already saturated ground, it became clear that the additional rainfall had nowhere to go.
You can see there's been a lot of heavy rain. Flooding continues to be a major concern, and we'll be watching for different reports coming down from the Weather Service areas that are seeing the river and stream flooding as well as urban flooding in some areas.
The rain was heaviest on the west and northwest sides of the storm. Rainfall amounts in these sections ranged from 10 to 18 inches. While the storm moved quickly off to affect the northeast U.S., the flooding wheels were already set in motion. In the days to come, lives would be changed forever.
Floyd's flooding caused a lot of problems for the city of Portsmouth, one in which the residents were forced to deal with too much water or no water at all.
Next, we'll be taking a look at how Floyd prompted a rush for drinking water after an entire city supply was cut off.
The floods brought on by Floyd caused a lot of problems for the peninsula as well. More on the fury of the floods when we come back.
And we'll have part 2 coming up tomorrow. Now, after a quick break, we've got tropical trivia. Welcome back. Tonight's tropical trivia question is, what is the most recent named storm to cross from the Atlantic to the eastern Pacific? Cross-basin storms. Was it Dolly, Julia, Anita, or Diana? The answer tomorrow night on HHL. Remember, we're here Monday, actually 7 days a week, at 8 p.m. on 13 News Now Plus for the latest on the tropics. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.